over a couple different steps here. So this is how you receive the image. This is how you will white balance the image. This is going to be color correction and doing a faux window pull. This is not a true window pull. Then this is going to be fixing the color cast on the windows, or fixing the color cast in the whites. And then we're going to be figuring out how to do wall colors and making everything look as if you were outsourced and edited like an outsourcer. All right, so let's jump right into it. I do everything in Adobe Bridge just because I don't like importing collections and catalogs. This is what Lightroom was made out of. So let's jump right in and go to an HDR'd image. So he did supply a 5:2 bracket on all of these images. I'm not going to go over all of them. This is just going to be a select few. It might be different multiple series, but thanks again for Nick Davis for supplying these images. So this is already a edited images. Let's go back into reset as default. So first step I would do is just evaluate the image. Once again, this is an HDR'd image. So let's start with just white balance, which you could just select any part of the room that you think may be white. Now, this is where the consistency of different editors will come into play, because look at how much the white balance is different from parts of the room. And also, this is where wall colors can shift. So if you're getting inconsistent colors from your editors, they have like 1,000 different places they could click from. They weren't there on the scene. They don't know the perfect exact thing unless you set a tripod up here with a color card. There's no way they're going to be able to get their colors exactly correct the way you know them to be. So that's the first thing I just would like to point out. So back to the editing though, if you click and drag, hold shift and then drag your thing, then you can get a general estimate of the largest white balance spot. So let's go ahead and use that, or that's what I do. And then let's see if we can even get some window pulls. So these are just turning the highlights down, so we will be able to get something out of it. Let's go ahead and turn the brightness up. We have clipping and craziness. That means I actually have HDR turned on. I'm going to turn that off just so it's more uniform. Not everybody has an HDR monitor. So I'm just going to turn it up to a certain spot, and then I'm going to turn the highlights down. This is kind of where I am seeing the room as being acceptable for levels of brightness. So now I'm going to adjust the shadows to bring those back a little bit, turn the whites up and down just to kind of look around to see, and then turn the blacks up and down. We want to keep that contrast and that nice crisp look to it. So let's adjust the textures and clarity. We're not going to be adjusting anything else from there. So let's go into the brush. This is what I like to do whenever I am in a hurry and the clients don't expect a crisp window pull. So I'm going to come in here and get the brush tool. We are going to zoom in, and I am just going to outline this, turning the mask off just the best I can. This doesn't have to be perfect. I'll show you why in a second. And this is not an actual window pull. This is not how you would do this if you wanted really crisp, clean, and you were doing luminosity masking or hand blending. This is just a quick, easy way to show you how editors get the look that they get. And then we're going to be doing some more advanced ones as this series goes on. So first we did the brush tool, and now we're going to turn down to get the highlight recovery and colors to be correct. So we want it to look as good as we can outside the window, turning highlights down, contrast, things like that. But we do have this weird border. So let's go to the eraser tool, turn auto mask on, and then just get rid of that the best we can. Once again, this is not going to be perfect. So we're just kind of going through it to show what you can do with just one simple HDR and some hand blending with brush tools and things like that. Here's the perfect example of why this is not going to be acceptable for most. Like this window looks like a junky mess. And that is not acceptable for 99.5% of people. But once again, we're just showing you the basics. So this is a window pool with, everything outside of it. I know what you're thinking. There's color cast all over the place. So let's go ahead and jump into fixing that. This is how I would fix the whites inside of Photoshop to get rid of the color cast, and then we'll fix the walls right after that and give it that nice clean look that you are going for. So yes, they really do all of these things. So first I'm going to go to my object selection tool. This is just a method that I have developed. So we're just selecting the fan or anything else that's up in the roof that you don't want to have color cast on. So let's make everything white that has color cast. So to do that, we're going to be using this HSL slider over here. It can also be found right here or in a multiple other different selections. So first thing I'm going to do is just select out the roof because that is the biggest, whitest thing in this scene. Sometimes it has some difficult things to cut out, but for the most part, this one does not. And then once that's selected, I am just going to hit my HSL slider right there. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to turn the saturation down. I never go all the way down because that is just not realistic. So I go down to a certain extent that makes it look white. And then I bring the whites up, normally 5 to 10%. I don't go crazy on that. And then for here, you can just bring the fan back up to the top. And that's on its own layer, so we have a nice pooled fan. So there are other things that are white that need to be changed, so I'm just going to go get this brush tool, click back onto your mask, and then I'm just going to come in with a brush that has a medium hardness and then just the size needed. Normally the bracket tools can make it larger or smaller, and that's what I use for that. So if you wanted to, you can come in here and just select things. So if I wanted to select objects that should be white, and once again, this is just for learning purposes, so I'm not going to be showing you how to do everything. So feather, I turn that up by like 1.5 to 2, and get your brush tool and just paint it back white. So that's how we remove color cast on all of the objects that need to be white. So let's go find them. This little guy up here, this needs to be changed to white. This light switch could be changed to white. This railing, yep, it's white. This little guy down here, once again, I'm just roughly showing you, so you would do this much cleaner and take your time. And then this is white. So is that everything? This little light switch could be changed to white. Just little general things here and there. So that is color correcting the color cast. Now let's go into fixing the actual color itself. So I'm just flattening because this is destructive. I don't need to go back in and change things later. So I'm going to make a new layer, change it to color, and then I'm going to go in here and just select the walls and change the colors. Now, why am I selecting the walls? Because it just saves that little bit of time. So I'm just going to go back in here and selecting roughly the areas that are going to be painted, and these can be changed later, so you don't have to get super precise with it unless you want to save even more time in fixing the layers afterwards, and you will see what I mean by fixing the layers after. So I'm going to leave a couple things so you can see what happens when you miss something, just so you can see, well, I didn't mean to do that, but let's go ahead and click shift because we're going to just keep adding. Well, first we have to subtract, so press alt and then select the TV, So it gets rid of that. Go back to shift. And what we're doing is selecting the walls to basically paint the walls over. I'm adding this little part back in. And then, so once again, you may have little objects here and there that don't look great. And so let's go into the paint tool and find your color. So this is the color I think the wall should be. And then on your color layer, we're going to be just coloring things in. But as you can tell, we have missed a whole bunch of stuff and that doesn't look great. So what you're going to do is refine things. So we have a little bit of coloring issues on the walls, and to correct for that, we're just going to use the color tool and paint over those things. But they have some objects here that I do want to select out and just put on a different layer. So I'm going to click and select those with the object selection tool and just press Ctrl J. I'm going to be going in here and selecting a new layer. It's going to be on top, so let's bring the butterflies above that. Come down here to layer 2, which is your color layer. And if you do color layer, then it's only going to change the color in the scene. So if we find the color that we think the walls are, which once again, there's so many different. So after the white balancing, then you have the color of the walls, which could change drastically wherever you're clicking. So if the walls are this tan versus this yellow, or even have this little bit of blue in it, like, just give your editors a break. They're doing the best they can. And so right now, if I were to just paint on here, it just turns everything that single color within reason, because, you know, blacks don't really work that way, whites don't really work that way. But if it's some kind of color, then you can change the colors around. And this is how they hand paint in your walls to be really nice and crisp and clean. So what I'm going to do, just to save a little bit of time, and once again, this is not going to be perfect. Normally I'm getting in on the pixel level to just select everything the best I can. But for this, you guys don't have time for that. Right, so generally this is kind of what you have, and then you would select your color, and then you would just paint your walls back in. So that's how you get that nice, crisp, clean color for what you're needing. If it was a different color, then you would just select that color, and you can kind of tell where we are getting with all of this. And so if there is a spot that you have missed, you are on a color layer. So you can come in here with the eraser tool and erase out the spots that don't need to be that color. Or if you need to add more color into an area that doesn't need to be in that area, then you can come back and add that color in as well. So this is a sloppy look on how they edit everything to get this look that you're going for. There are a couple different things you can do to, you know, highlight different things. So sometimes you can come in here to the shadow and highlight and just kind of mess around with the settings to get a nice crisper tones. So this is something that I have done before just to get things looking sharper or bring back some of the shadows a little bit. As far as looking at contrast and things, you can either click on the levels or the curves. They almost do the same thing. And then you can just bring back the darks and bring up the highlights if you want to. And if I invert that selection, you can put that where you want. So if you wanted things to be a little crisper in some areas or brighter in some areas, then you could do that as well and have a nice bright roof. Or if this little shadow area, things like that. But that is your quick and dirty breakdown of how you edit like an outsourced editor without just doing the window pulls. That will be in the next series, so watch out for that, and have a great day. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and if you have any questions, hit me up in the groups or in here through the comments. Have a great day. I am Stephen Tippett.